Hello and welcome to another weekly video with myself, Sam Volkering, and my colleague and friend, Nick Hubble. And we are going to be talking about some very interesting things today that may enhance your, your your regular viewing of this video. It may offend. You may go through the gamut of emotions in today's discussion. So we're gonna dive straight in. We should we should acknowledge at least the fact that England is no longer in the World Cup as you watch this video, so we can all get on with our lives again. I had two very upset boys that their country had been knocked out of the World Cup. One of them came in and with the remote in his hand. And was like, "Dad, let's watch England." And I had to break it to him that he'd missed the game and they had lost, and then he cried and left. So anyway, moving on from that, so I had actually I'd written in Investors Daily this week about the idea that England could win the whole lot. It would be coming home. There's a tangible economic benefit to the country that wins the World Cup. There is empirical evidence that suggests that there's a lift in GDP. Socially, the cohesion would have been fantastic. For the pub industry and for the hospitality industry, it would have been amazing to see another £1 billion would have crossed over the tills on the weekend had they made it through, had they won. Alas, they did not. So this maybe sends the hospitality industry into further decline. And I say further decline because we do know that sales of alcohol, that kind of social lubricant, as much as my wife hates me using that as a phrase, is an important part, or has been historically an important part of society. That is all changing, and we are witnessing firsthand a change of society in how people connect, how people interact, what they do, who they hang out with, what they hang out with. We know in Japan, and you can maybe talk to us a little bit more about this, about the rise of AI companions and the phenomenon that is the AI boyfriend or girlfriend, and the evolution that that's having in society. Step us through a little bit of what that looks like, because this is a bit of a weird, bit of a strange, very foreign topic to a lot of people, but it's something that's important to understand is happening in society.
Yeah, so I saw a statistic on an X or a different social media. I don't know if it's true, but it sort of gives us a hint at what we're trying to get at here, which is that people are spending more money these days on AI boyfriends and girlfriends than on dates, going out on dates. Um, Now, that transition is kind of what we're getting to here, but the point is that people are choosing to have these relationships with AI, personal relationships with AI, instead of with each other, as a therapist, as a traditional relationship, and this is having an impact just on everything else in our world because, like you said, they don't go out, they don't go to the pub, they don't socialize. Fertility rates are down, spending rates are down on socializing. People stay at home. There was another interesting comment that went viral on social media about how how children are no longer interested in getting a driver's license, essentially because they don't need to in order to socialize anymore. And that obviously has impacts then subsequently on car companies and the way we use transport, the way we move around. There was an interesting one about how the way people find a match these days is it's a much smaller ecosystem
Mhm.
despite online dating, and the way that we use online dating is constrain the ecosystem of who you meet and how you interact with them, how you learn to interact with other people. So all of this is changing, and it's going to impact at some point financial markets quite significantly as well. So that's one of the things that we need to get into if we're going to try and prepare people for how the world's changing and how they should invest as a result of that.
So the natural evolution of this is from an AI companion, and again, this may seem very strange to people watching this video, but it's a generational thing. Like, again, you mentioned online dating. Online dating was like, to my dad, the idea of of online dating, or meeting someone online, uh, is it's the craziest thing in the world. Craziest thing in the world. My generation, pretty normal. To generations that come after us, again, just it's even evolved again from what online dating was for me when I was younger, and now it's swipe right and a lot of that. But the evolution of that is to you know not swipe at all and just have yourself an AI companion. That there's dangers in that, and we know there can be dangers in that, but there's also possible benefits and a lot of benefits in that in terms of companionship. And now whether people agree with that or not is somewhat moot. Is that is the direction that things are heading, and that for now at least the majority of that is phone based, app based. The companion exists in the cloud. But what we're saying is the next evolution of that, which is inevitable, and this is how society continuously changes over time, is into the physical world. And by that we mean things like humanoid robotics. And this is a big area of excitement, fear. Thanks to James Cameron, the idea of robots achieving sentience and replicating themselves and then exterminating human existence is something that always lives rent free in pretty much everyone's mind, mine included. So there are those sorts of concerns that exist about humanoid robotics, but we are seeing incredible pace of development. We know Optimus is, what are we in? We're in mid-July now. The first production of the Tesla Optimus robot is expected by the end of the summer. So anytime within maybe the next 6 or 7 weeks, they'll start rolling off the production line. Now that Tesla's completely reworked the Model X and Model S production lines into a robotics factory, which in itself is not getting talked about anywhere near as much as it should. But the idea of humanoid robotics now is going from concept and prototype to, hang on, mass production is literally on the doorstep. What does that unlock for us, Nick? Is that we talk about social change and humanoid robots and the idea of AI companions. Are we getting to a point where, for lack of putting it in a better way, that the idea of adult companionship of humanoid robots is where we could be heading here?
Yeah, I think the point is that we're hitting a threshold where we have to make a choice. Society, governments, every individual has to make a choice because the possibilities are now there. And the best way to think about this is the Isaac Asimov novels, which I think you were making an iRobot reference there to the film. But the probably the most famous science fiction author in the world wrote a series of novels, and I think they're called the iRobot series as a group. And I've read, I think most of them, if not all of them. And the point of these novels is that each different planet that humans have colonized over the years has dealt with this challenge in a slightly different way. And that's resulted in everything else about those planets, those human civilizations sort of diverging from each other. So in Earth, humans decide that humanoid robots are too much of a threat. They take our jobs, they mess up our personal relationships. They're effectively, too attractive, too beautiful, too easy to become addicted to. They lead to social recluses and all this weird stuff. And therefore, we don't want humanoid robots. We're happy having, machine arms hanging around, but we don't want humanoid ones. Then there's a different planet in which they've embraced humanoid robots to quite a significant extent. And it's quite normal in those societies for humans to have relationships with those humanoid robots. And it's a bit weird, but it functions quite well. And then there's the ones that have embraced humanoid robots to the point where they basically have no interhuman interactions anymore, or very rarely have any sort of human interaction with each other, and only at a distance, only on a video call like this one, because humanoid robots can do everything in that future. And so I think we're at a point now where humanoid robots are about to come off the production line, and they're getting quite good at doing things. We spoke on a meeting a few days ago about how they figured out how to simulate hands quite well.
Yeah, so they're up to 25 degrees of freedom. The latest hand from the Neo Robotics company, sorry, 1X, the 1X Robotics company, and it's their Neo robot, has 25 degrees of freedom with the hand. So the human hand has 27 degrees of freedom. And the new one that's just been released into the Neo is actually tendon based. So there's a whole bunch of mechanical tendons and actuators, and that gives the hand its full range of freedom. It's phenomenal, really.
Yeah, a few months ago, I was on holiday and they had a virtual reality game thing happening, a mobile one. And so I was playing virtual reality, shoot 'em outs with these little Japanese kids and me on a big carpeted area in front of a stage. And I kept on like knocking them over and hitting myself in the face with the gun and everything. It was hilarious. But if you combine that virtual reality with the humanoid robot side, the point is that the technology is now there to become extremely enticing to human nature, where we've got the AI intelligence, we've got the mechanics, we've got the virtual reality concept. So humans are going to get addicted to this stuff, and governments are going to have to decide what to do about this. Humanoid robot companies are going to have to decide what they're actually going to offer or not. Is the technology going to get developed in some faraway country, even if we do ban it? So all of these questions, they're about to have to be answered. And how they're answered is going to determine which robotic stocks do extremely well and which ones do badly, and which AI companies succeed and which ones don't, in which countries, in which stock markets, also which industries get revolutionized by humanoid robots, and which don't. So, it's an open question whether we even need humanoid robots in a factory setting, or should just a factory be redesigned around the most efficient form of robots. So all of these questions are coming to a head right now, and so that's why we're focusing on them and why we need to come up with some answers.
Absolutely. And it's very much along the lines. I think you can track. I think a very reasonable parallel here is the way in which smartphones all of a sudden became a thing and then exploded into sort of mainstream, and then the adoption rate just became saturated over the last 20 odd years. And the reason for that isn't so much the technology existed before. So like robotics, humanoid robotics has been, in development now for a very long time through, like you say, mechanical arms and things like production lines. Even the Roomba that kicks around your house vacuuming, these are the seeds that grow into what we will be getting with humanoid robotics. When we get fully functional humanoid robotics like Optimus, like the Neo, all of a sudden, then we're now looking at the secondary effects of that. So if you think about other mechanical based things, if I draw a parallel to a vehicle, right? So if cars never existed, we'd never have mechanics. There wouldn't be the petroleum, the oil and gas industry, obviously has its place with other things, but that isn't anywhere near as big as it is. We're not selling the tools that are used to maintain the vehicles. We're not selling mods. There's paint shops don't exist. Wheel shops. There's all these accessories and things that people like to use to personalize their vehicles. Same with smartphones. You look at a smartphone, and then there's a whole industry around cases for smartphones. And then you look at the app economy that exploded out the back of the smartphone technology. So the iPhone was great, but it was the app economy that really created billions and billions, trillions, arguably, of growth and wealth and value in that industry. The same thing happens for robotics. The secondary effects, I think, people aren't thinking or talking about as much as they should. Yes, the robots are exciting. Yes, Tesla may become a great robotics company instead of a car company. But then there are things that we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen an explosion of accessories, of clothing, of skins like you would find in a video game for a character. Maintenance of these things, just like replacing a bearing. It's going to get to a point where the robotics manufacturers make replacing a bearing as easy as replacing the roller on your Roomba. These are the sorts of knock-on effects that this kind of technology ends up delivering. And so it's important, I think, for people to understand is that this is sort of a direction we're heading, and we know. So again, just the other week, I think it was last week, two humanoid robots completed the first ever surgery on a human being. Healthcare is going to be a major thing. You know, paint shops that can personalize. There's going to be so much additional um, growth and wealth and value generated off the back of just something as simple as, say, as simple as something like a humanoid robot. And I think the people get a little bit hung up with the idea of a humanoid robot being around, and then aren't really thinking of the value chain that that delivers down the track.
Yeah, if you think about what smartphones have in them, it's a map, it's telephone, games, TV, it's all
Absolutely.
concentrated in one thing. And they have destroyed some of the sales of those secondary industries. So the question is, what are humanoid robots going to destroy as well as what they're going to create? And I think medical side is a good example, actually, of something the humanoid robots can do very well, aged care and things like that. So it's also figuring out the financial impacts on those secondary industries that are going to be revolutionized by this. But do you think humanoid robots will be allowed to have this much of a disruptive effect? Or do you think, which of those Isaac Asimov planets are we going to end up emulating? Because there is something different about humanoid robots relative to technologies that have come before, in the sense that they are replacing humans, even within human form. Like you said, they've got the dexterity of a hand. They're doing surgery now. That is a level of, I mean, there's not much left for us to do.
I think that the bigger concern would be around the AI that is or isn't involved in the robots. So the robots themselves, I think, are no different to a device, really. Like I said, they're no different to a smartphone strapped onto a Roomba with a couple of fancy claws that can go and do stuff. You can even buy vacuum robots now that will pick up clothes with a little claw. It's an acceleration of that. The danger then becomes within what do they see if they're using vision cameras? Where does that data go? And how is AI involved in the process of autonomy of these robots? But they're the things that people, governments, organizations are trying to figure out now. You know, who gets to say what the AI does? But the robots themselves, I think, very quickly, I think the adoption curve of them is similar to smartphones. It's early adopters kind of thing, and then I think it's an exponential growth factor. Once the cost curve gets to a point where they're not ridiculous. The idea of an $8,000 or $10,000 or euro or pound robot isn't a stretch. It's not that big a stretch. Yes, it's a lot of money, but we're not talking car level money here, and we're not that far removed, I think, from the highest end smartphone either. So this is the sort of a middle ground where it sits, where the idea of robot financing, I think, all of a sudden becomes a thing. You know,
Mm.
um, companies like Klarna all of a sudden are doing pay for your robot in 4 installment sorts of thing. So
Yeah.
there are these other impacts on the entire financial system, on the entire stock market, on what this will do. The idea of every robot will like a smartphone. I got a whole bunch of memory in that. I got a MacBook down there. There's a whole bunch of memory and storage in that. My PC, same here. My robot too is going to need memory. It's going to need storage, and it's going to need inputs and outputs. It's a PC with my Roomba and my smartphone in one thing, and maybe we don't end up with all this stuff in the house. Maybe the robot becomes like the home hub of technology as well. So again, where we go, I think is really exciting. There's a little bit of weirdness to adapt to here, and we haven't dug into it too much. But I know you've in one of I think your upcoming Fleet Street letter, you go a little bit more into a lot of this as well, and where we might go, and what is a big driver of adoption with this. But I think that once people really unpack the fact that this is coming, um, it will be maybe slow adoption commercially for the consumer, but then that ramps up real quick, and the knock-on effects of industry and value outside of that, I think, astronomical. As I say, like smartphones were and have created trillion, billion, $1 trillion companies. the app economy off the back of that, and then everything else that goes into that, the picks and shovels, if you will, is a really exciting opportunity. But that's enough for this week. We've gone on. Think about it, everybody watching. Just think about the concept of every other house in the street maybe having a humanoid robot in it, maybe even your own, and what that means for society, for the broader economy, and importantly for your investment account as well, because that's something we're going to be looking at a lot more in the coming weeks and months about how to play this directly and indirectly through, as we've talked about at length today. Thank you, Nick. Always a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll be back with you again next week. Bye for now.